The drivers face brand new territory this evening by tackling iRacing's latest road course. The long-requested Hockenheim may not be its once notorious version, which blasted through the trees at incredible speeds, but it will still be a serious challenge. Will Holland make it back-to-back in Germany? We'll find out soon as we get ready to watch Round 4 of the PRL Indy Pro 2000 Series, and you'll see it all live here on the Global Sim Racing channel. Hi, I'm Joe Peak, and with me in the booth is DJ Clark. Behind the scenes is our director, Sean Crackers Ambrose, and he's using cameras provided by Dougie Beard. Hockenheim's newer layout adds a technicality to it that the old version certainly lacked. Let's break it down with our track guide. Welcome to Hockenheim. Located just an hour away from the border of France, this is a German track whose nature has changed drastically over its history. Once an eye-watering blast through long straights in the forest, it has since been truncated to its current format. With 6 different layouts ranging between 2.5 and 4.5 kilometers containing 13 to 16 turns, depending on which you choose, it's got something for just about every level of racing. This means it would fit everything from club cars up to Formula One. And that's perhaps what it's most well known for. One of the regular hosts for the German Grand Prix, it has been the scene of multiple dramatic moments, some triumphant, some tragic. Its redesign in the early 2000s gave it a few well-placed overtaking spots. The Parabolica entrance can create a good sneak attack, but even if you don't get it done there, the huge run towards the tight and slow Spitz curve is the place most well known for overtakes. If neither of those work, on rare occasions, Mercedes Corner can see drivers manage to pass one another. While the straights certainly aren't as long as the old version, it still requires a good deal of top speed to be competitive. But driver beware. Throttle control can often make or break your lap on the latter half of the circuit. All in all, German race fans can be assured to find great action no matter your tastes in racing at this fantastic venue. Well, DJ, this is a track that has seen some wild races in recent years, so what are we expecting today with these Indy Pro 2000s?
Well, Joe, these drivers are really going to have their hands full as they tackle the Hockenheimring. There are plenty of good places for overtaking around the circuit, most specifically the hairpin at the end of the parabolic, and we could also see some aggressive moves coming down into the Sachs curve, that left-handed banked 180-degree corner to really round out the final sector of the track. But there are plenty of challenges for the drivers as well. We talk about it week after week, and especially just in regards to the tires on these cars. Opening lap, everybody's going to have to be very, very careful through turn 1, the Nord curve. These tires take a minute to heat up, and they're not going to be fully up to temperature by the time they dive in there. It's really kind of a lift corner. It's not necessarily a full braking zone, very similar to Copse, like at Silverstone. So drivers are going to have to be very careful as they get the tires up to speed. We've also heard a lot of drivers talking tonight about just how slippery the track surface is. So everybody's going to have to be careful, even as these tires come up to full temperature, that they don't get on the throttle too early and spin out those rear tires.
Well, as I said, it'll be unknown territory for a lot of them, so we'll see how and who discovers it the best. But today's race is brought to you also by SimMSA. Simulation Motorsports Affinity provides many consulting services, from completely customizing simulators to managing teams, individual drivers, and complete events. They're working hard to bring everyone together at one place to support and promote sim racing internationally. Find out how you can bridge the gap between virtual and real motorsports at SIMMSA.net.
The PRL Indy Pro 2000 Series is also brought to you by NinjaTrader. Ready to compete against the financial markets? Supporting over 60,000 users across the globe, NinjaTrader provides award-winning trading software and brokerage services. NinjaTrader is always free to use for advanced charting, backtesting, and trade simulation. Visit NinjaTrader.com to get started with a risk-free trading simulator and start tracking your performance.
Today's broadcast is also proudly sponsored by ButtKicker. ButtKicker products add an incredible immersion and realism to any game. Feel every nuance and truly put yourself in the driver's seat. Check them out at thebuttkicker.com. So the championship, now that we have hit round 4, has gotten fascinating here because David Holland continues to close down on Alessandro Di Tullio, only 5 points back. And Christoph Herbeno has been incredibly consistent. He's gotten 2 second places along with Holland's 2 victories there. So those two are very much hot on the heels of our leader. Owen Watts and Connor Wagner a little bit farther back, but still could find themselves in the hunt. Wagner in particular has been fast at times, but just not getting the results he needs. What about the AM Championship so far out here, DJ?
Well, Joe, the battle for P1 is just as tight as it is in the Pro Championship, with Galaz leading Horvath by only 3 points. Back in third is Tyler Scarelli, 24 points behind them, with Dave Peterson only a point back from Scarelli, and Ethan Oring only a point back from Peterson. But something to keep of note here is that based off of the way that this AM Drivers' Championship is scored, that it is in relation to where each other finishes, these points can change like on the flip of a coin.
Now, for the team's championship, Delta Sport has been on an absolute tear. You can see they hold the top 2 spots, and the Britannia iSports team is the only one that's really got a chance of trying to overtake at least one of the two of them, 10 points back from that P2 spot. Uragon Racing a little ways behind in 4th, but it is extremely narrow between themselves and the other Delta Sport that is among our 3 within the top 5 there, Driven Texas team. And then behind them, not on our graphic, Andy's Racing is actually only another 3 points behind them. So it's very, very tight for the 4th spot in the teams currently. Why don't you run us down the race details for today's event, DJ?
Well, Joe, as you mentioned, we are in the 4th of 10 rounds here in the Indy Pro 2000 League, and that is the car we are going to be running. It's going to be a 45-minute or 26-lap race, whichever comes first today, with an open setup on these cars, so drivers will be able to tweak and tune the little things you can on this car to just make the setup as good as possible. Now, we've talked about this all season. The points for penalties here are very, very low. Only 11 points of incident points gets you a drive-through, and you get disqualified at 20, especially with a place like Hockenheim, which has a lot of places you can run wide. We're going to have to keep an eye on that. But the flip of that being is there are bonus points available if you are a good little boy, and that is pole, fastest lap, or 3 incidents or less.
Well, hopefully they can keep it within the bounds and not too tempted by all that paved runoff that is around. Right now, Christoph Herbeno actually has the provisional pole, which is interesting because Di Tullio was leading the timing sheets in the warm-up for a good chunk of the end of it, honestly. Holland was right behind him, but Holland is in second, and it's actually extremely tight for first, second, and third. There is half a tenth between 1, 2, and 3 right now on the tower there to your left. Ethan Lamp is in 4th and has a significantly bigger gap back to him, 0.3 of a second just to get to 3rd place. That tells you the kind of level that Herbeno, Holland, and Di Tullio are running right now.
Yeah, it's really impressive, Joe, and some of that may come down to something you and I were talking about before we got on air, which is the clean air that you can get in running on these qualifying laps. Everybody out on track at the same time, running behind another car, it'll help you going down the long parabolica, but you get into Sector 3, and that is not a good thing to have another car in front of you.
Takeshi Kita comes across the line and puts himself into 31st with that lap, a 35.5. Adam Wright into 17th, but he doesn't improve on that last one, so he's not going to raise up any higher. Look at how many cars there are out there right now. Just looking down the front stretch, there was just an absolute stream of them. Now it starts to peter out a little bit, but boy, it is packed with nearly 50 drivers trying to compete here today, and what brought out a lot of competitors today, I'm guessing just because of the popularity of the new circuit.
I think you're pretty right in that assessment, Joe. Hockenheim, one of those circuits that has been clamored for a very long time on iRacing, and they just implemented it here in the last month or so. So very, very new, fresh, and fun for these drivers.
And a lot of technical portions here, like we see coming through the stadium section. And back onto the front stretch. Herbeno, Holland and Atulio actually should be coming through there soon. So we should see them attempt to better their laps. Yeah, here we are on screen, and that looked like Urbano maybe having a little bit of an off there, unfortunately, on his way in. So that one might not be counted for him. Holland, I think, is going to be the first of that trio to cross. They are all kind of clumped together here, and for Holland, a 33.3 goes quicker and puts him up to pole by 0.2.
That's a good lap there from Holland, and that's really starting to space out that gap you talked about earlier there, Joe. That is a full 0.2 above Urbano's time, so a lot of time to be gained there. Riding on board right now with Nick Horvath as he makes his way back into the arena section. This is the area that Urbano went off on, and you can see why. It's a very, very fast sweeping corner, and you've got to hit that apex absolutely millimeter perfect. Otherwise, you can go right off into the grass.
Incredibly, we have managed to get a clean lap for everybody except Duchesne and Vargas right now. And we're not even sure if both of them are in the session currently. Looks like they are, actually. So I'm not sure what's causing them to decide to start at the back of the pack, other than maybe they're just trying to avoid some of the chaos at the beginning of this race as Galaz takes his machine across the line. And unfortunately, that 35.5 is not going to take him higher up the order, as he was off by 0.003 of a second. Duhamel, as he comes down to the line, this could be a quick one. As he crosses, no, does not count. He must have had an off track somewhere, so that 34.7 is going to stay put.
Here comes Andy Spicer. He's currently 34th right now. Looks like that last lap is not going to count as well, so he's going to stay where he is with the 35.5. Here comes your provisional pole seater, Dave Howell.
Oh, but Tulio just went quicker, a 33.163, and now he is 0.2 faster than Holland. For as tight as they were, they have suddenly spread apart by quite wide margins, to be honest. Raymond Day just put himself into 7th with that lap. A nice one from him into the 33.989.
Very good one right on board now with Ethan Lamp coming across the line. Lamp looks like he's going to be unable to improve on that, about 0.6 slower than his previous lap, so obviously a little bit of a slowdown there from him. Here comes Ovando. Ovando is currently in 9th place, and looks like that lap's not going to count.
3 minutes left on the clock, so drivers maybe have 2 laps left at best. Palacio not able to improve that time. Broomhead, fortunately, looks like he had an off himself, so he is going to have to go around one more time himself. Ooh, and a few drivers heading off into the runoff in turn 1 will discount that lap immediately for them. Oring all the way down in 40th. Looks like he had a similar issue. Maybe everybody just pushing that little bit too hard around this circuit now, trying to find a few tenths here and there.
Very wide exit out of that final corner for Andy Spicer. That lap not going to be any better with a 35.6. And here they come rolling through.
This is Adam Wright sitting in 19th currently. And looks like that's another driver that has failed to set a time that is counted by the stewards. It's automatic here in iRacing. If you go off track, it is automatically thrown out. So they do have to keep within the bounds. It's not quite. Whoa! What is going on there with McDonald's? Who unfortunately has gone off. He is on the radio quite quickly and seems to be pretty incensed, understandably so, as that was with, I think, Ethan Oring that we saw that incident happen with. Julio Palacio in 17th, just off of his best time, unfortunately, using as much as he can off the exit. Scavalli down in 32nd, a 36.4, going to be actually about 1.2 seconds off of his best time, so that is definitely not competitive for him. Vargas finally did get one on the board, so we're only waiting on Duchesne to put one down. And Vargas goes quicker to a 35.4. That'll bump him up about 9 spots.
It's a good lap for him. We're going to watch Aaron Roofs here coming across the line. Let's see what the driver of the number 26 can do, as he is currently back in 39th. Looks like he's going to stay 39th on this lap.
I see our pole sitter. Oh, and he's actually heading in. DeTulio is content so that he doesn't think that he can go any quicker, essentially, because he had time to start another lap. As the 399 of Huard comes across. And unfortunately, he's not going to be good for that AM race today, starting from well back in the order. Our highest of the AM class is Duhamel right now in that 617.
And that's him actually going to be crossing over the line right now, back in at 21st. As you said, looks like he is going to stay there for the time being.
And we hit 0. Ovando slow, so that's not going to be a quicker one. As Fishman comes in behind him, he also doesn't go any faster. This is Palacio in 17th, and he improves up to P14 with that 34.2.
It's a good lap from Palacio. Here comes Nick Horvath. Let's see what Nick can do with that time as he comes across the line. Looks like Horvath is not going to be able to improve on his time there. Here comes Fournier.
He's abandoning it, so he heads down into pit lane. Vargas does the same. Kranefoos, will he think this is something that is worth continuing? Yes, he does. He comes around the south curve and up towards the timing line. He's all the way down in 30th right now with one time on the board. That's his second at a 34.4. That'll bump him to 16th.
Big improvement there from Daniel Kranefoos. Here comes Matthew Gunderson across the line. Gunderson crosses over, and it looks like that one is not going to improve, about 0.6 off of his best.
Richards does not go faster as he finishes up his qualifying. What about Wagner sitting in 6th? It's a 33.7. It's his quickest, but it was only about 3 1,000ths quicker, unfortunately, so that's not going to give him much. And then from there, there's Dave Peterson crossing. Didn't see if he improved. I'll have to check that in a bit. Brett Barnett up next in the 32. Nope, that's not going to give him much. And Oring comes to the line. He seems to have gotten that car fixed. Is back out, trying to get higher than 42nd position through the Sachs curve. That track weaves back and forth, and then a curved braking zone into the south curve. Here we go. As he comes down to the line, it's a 35.6. His quickest goes very wide, but I think that's still within the bounds. And no, looks like that did not count, unfortunately. So that will be the last of our qualifying done for today. A large field out here in what is a cool evening in Germany. So it's going to be slippery at the start, and drivers will definitely have to be on their toes to make sure they don't run into one another or potentially the wall. As we now switch over to the next session, let's start heading through our field here today. Alessandro DeTulio with another pole position, looking fast this time around. David Holland will start in second. Christoph Herbino will be P3, and Owen Watts will be in fourth. Ethan Lamp was P5 with Connor Wagner in 6th, Alex Fournier in 7th, and Frank Nguyen with a great qualifying in P8. Mark McDonald will start 9th, and Raymond Day within the top 10.
In 11th is going to be Rafael Ravando, followed by Rod Clenard. Behind it, then, it's going to be Stephen Verity and Julio Palacio lining up in row 7. In 15th will be Dave Menemo. To his outside, Daniel Kranefoos. Sebastian Merrier going to be in 17th, followed by Owen McLaughlin in 18th. And then to round out your top 20, it's David Fishman and Michael Broomhead.
Adam Wright starts in 21st with Byron Daly in 22nd. Then it's Duhamel. Our pole position for the AM class starts 23rd, Caven Norris, and P24. Brett Barrett will start 25th, followed by Peterson to his outside, and Brett Thurman in the 27th spot. It's Matthew Gunderson in 28th, Joey Haynes in 29th, one of our competitors for the AM Championship, as Takesha starts from 30th.
In 31st is Nick Horvath, followed by Nicholas Collender and Tyler Scarali behind them. Starting out 34th will be Barry Cochran, and 35th is Lucio Vargas. Neil Alexander is 36th, with Brett Accord and Andy Spicer in the row behind him. And then to round out your top 40, it is Gonzalo Munoz and Aaron Roofs.
In 41st, it'll be Hugo Galaz. Ethan Oring, who's already not really made friends out there, will start from 42nd. Donald Olson starts 43rd, and Christopher Richard 44th. Last three to put times in are Doherty, Huard, and Hebert. And Duchesne will take to the grid, although he did not set a time. Tail end Charlie on this one. We have one driver with an onboard today, Brett Accord, in that 151. Starting all the way down in 37th. Let's hope we can get some climbing through the field from him as we now glance, and the driver has got himself ready to go. Takes off behind the warm-up lap, the very short warm-up lap that we have here behind the Porsche pace car. So we come back up to the front. It is going to be DiTullio who kicks things off, but he has been blinking a lot, both in practice and qualifying, so I'm hoping his connection gets a little bit better. As the pace car peels away, DiTullio has control, waiting for it out of the south curve. He's checking him up, and the green flag is out. Times it well, and he starts to pull away behind him. A little bit of three wide farther down in the field. Look at them flying towards us, a whole pack of cars. I expect a lot of them taking to the runoff here, and a few of them actually wrecking into there, unfortunately. We'll come back to it in a bit. Looks like Palacio is one of those involved as we now break for the Parabolica entry for the first time, and at least this is looking clean so far.
It is. These leaders able to keep it together nice here, but now this is where that draft is going to start to come into play. Who's going to be able to be the one to make the move? A lot of the Delta Sport units trying to do it, but we've got to move for the lead. That's Holland to the inside.
Holland looking around on the outside of the Spitz curve, and unfortunately, no, he does have the grip. Wow! Pinching DiTullio to the inside is going to allow him to get through, and he is our new leader already on the first lap. I think we had a bit of some incidents down in that hairpin. Another pass potentially for second place, sneaking up the inside. That's Herbino.
Herbino being very late on it there, and a good way to go on it, but DiTullio fighting back a little bit, and that's Watts behind him trying to make things dicey as well. Watts
now has his teammate Lampe just behind him, and still side by side, coming through Mobile 1 curve down into the Sachs curve, and Herbino's finally going to clear him, but still the battle rages on between DiTullio and Watts once again. Blinking light, oh no, they're going to come together. Cars are trying to scatter. Multiple are getting involved. In fact, it's still happening. Oh no. Oh my goodness, we're going to jump back and take out a replay on this right now. Looking like that started with that contact between Watts and DiTullio. Yeah, I think DiTullio's blinking did not help the situation, but it looked like that was going to happen no matter what. It appears that they also had Wagner involved, Mark McDonald. I think Lampe may have just... No, Lampe definitely got a big piece of it, unfortunately. We come back live. A number of front runners compromised, but this is great news for David Holland. He's got 0.8 of a second over Herbino now. He does indeed, and that is really separated out the field. You can see it's a almost 5 second gap between Herbino and Ovando. So this has turned in from a multiple lap race to a really between two, focusing in on Rafael Ovando here. Great for them, obviously, as a podium is on the cards. Unfortunately, it was bad news for other drivers, as Brett Accord, I think, had a bit of an issue. Looks like he's back on track. Don't need to go to that. He just went a little bit wide at the hairpin. Looking at fourth place, Stephen Verity being chased by Clenard and Day. And they've got a little bit of a gap behind them to Merrier in seventh, running in that 25. They do indeed. Day looking pretty good onto the brakes. They're down into the Sachs curve, able to really carry momentum through that banked corner. You can see him really closing up behind as we ride on board with Clenard here. He is on it, and he's certainly got some pressure from behind. That's Raymond Day approaching, coming up into the north curve, swinging it through there. All of them still within the bounds of the track. Ooh, and it's a good run for Day. He can maybe try and mug him down into the Parabolica entry, but no, he decides to stay in line. Maybe he's looking for the slipstream. Well,
he's got to be careful because Clenard is going to get that same advantage from Verity up ahead of him. This is a good run from Stephen Verity. We haven't seen him up near the pointy end of the field all that much this season, so good to see him up in fourth right now, but here it comes. It looks like Clenard's going to think about it to the inside of Verity.
He's got the track position. Oh, he's too hot into the corner, and he spins it out. Day might have a chance to try and overtake Verity himself now. As they go side by side, it's a quick swing into the Mercedes arena, and they're going to give each other plenty of space in the process. Verity defending that inside line, and it looks like he's good. He'll keep fourth.
Does indeed. Day keeping up the pressure if he can, but it is at least a moment of reprieve from Verity. And you can see in the background there, Merrier and Fishman able to claw in a little bit with the battling of these cars in front.
Oh, we've got another big accident. Neil Alexander in the 276. A bunch of cars having to scatter, unfortunately. And I think Hugo Galaz also getting involved. Oh, we got spun around. Not sure who that was, but then this is very similar to what we saw on the first lap with the leaders, where just everybody, there's so many cars out on track, it's almost like you have no chance to avoid.
Exactly. It's almost like a super speedway race here. There you see tries to hold. Oh, I got to give a little bit of fault there to Alexander. Looks like he let off of the brakes, and that threw off some of the cars around him. If you get into one of those spins, always advisable to just clamp onto those brakes.
We come back to the fight for 11th place. That's Barrett with Wright behind him. Ooh, and Wright has got a great run, but he's going to have to go around the outside. We've seen that work for a few drivers. As long as he doesn't spin it, it seems like the braking into this tight little hairpin has caught so many outs. Wright's good so far, and he's going to be able to pull it off. The 32 settles back into 12th, as he's also now being chased by Peterson and Thurman.
Yes, indeed. Barrett thinking about trying to maybe fight back here on Wright down into that corner, but not going to be able to do it. And you said it yourself, Joe. Peterson now looking very, very scrappy, but I think he's got more concerns with Thurman behind him.
It's a good exit coming out of the Mercedes arena. And then it's back into the stadium section. We ride on board with Brett, looking forward. And as the drivers take it through the Sachs curve, I am noticing from this onboard one thing I found, because I believe I got to drive this car very early when this track was released. It seemed like open wheelers bottom out on some of these curves really easily.
Yeah, they really do, Joe. There's a lot of gradient on this track, a lot of crowning on it. If you don't take the corners exactly the right way, the under tray of the car can scrape over the ground, and that can really upset the car. That's why if we ride on board with these guys, you'll see them having to make some very, very quick-handed corrections.
Let's get back to the leaders, because I just realized that Herbino, with his 0.8 of a second, was not willing to sit still. And he has closed it down now to 1/10 of a second. Almost thought he'd maybe take a peek on his teammate Holland there into the Spitzker, but he decided not to. But now he has certainly got him within range, and if he wants to attack the lead, he could, because he's got 6.2 seconds back to Ovando. They are under no pressure from behind.
Yeah, exactly. And Herbino currently sitting with the fastest lap of the race last time out, so he's clearly got speed over his teammate Holland here. This may just be also a situation, we've seen a lot of guys do this before, where maybe Herbino's a little content to just sit back and save some fuel, try to eke out an extra lap as they go around.
Down into the south curve once again for our leader, or our second place driver in the championship and our third place driver in the championship. I think they're going to be up to P1 and P2 after today if they keep this up, even if they lose some spots, honestly, to Tullio with a DNF today, or at least a very far down position, is going to suffer in the championship. This is Stephen Verity leading ahead of Raymond Day and David Fishman in 4th, 5th, and 6th.
Yeah, and there you can see Day's looking like he is coming back and forth, trying to get something from Verity here, but it just doesn't look like he has the outright speed on that straightaway here. Not able to catch up at this point, but he's gaining very fast as they make their way through that parabolica. Oh, and indeed, he's going to dive to the inside. Here he goes.
Oh, but he goes wide. He's given space on the exit. Just can't get the car to accelerate, and Verity keeps that fourth spot. Behind them, it was awful tight between Merrier and Clenard as well for 7th and 8th as they're all holding on, streaming along into the Mercedes arena one more time. We've had a number of DNFs, but a few drivers have managed to make it back out on track, even with the damage, just trying to salvage something of this race.
Yeah, I think they know that with such a high attrition race here, that getting back out on track is going to help whatever you can get to salvage points-wise. But we follow here, looking at the 45. That is Ron Clenard, the back of the train of this very, very fierce battle that stretches all the way up to 4th place.
A little wide at the apex there for Verity. And that's going to give Day another chance at a run, but it's not a very long straight along the pit. And into the north curve, he's not nearly close enough. And in fact, you can see the difficulties trying to follow a faster car through that swift curve. It's not going to give him a shot down into the Parabolica entry either, but this is the longest stretch of the track. The run along the Parabolica itself, and this is great for Day right now.
Yeah, this is the closest we've seen him in a good chunk here. They're going to come through that final curve and line up into the braking zone. Here he comes with a full head of steam. Again, going for that same move. Dives to the inside on Verity. Holds the line. Little bit of a lock up there, but he's in front as Verity goes very wide.
And to his inside, that was Fishman, who found himself a chance as they're going to go too wide once again through that little kink. And then 3 wide potentially, a peak down the middle. Oh, someone outbraking themselves. That's Clenard. And it was Sebastian Merrier who spun himself instead. What is going on with this group?
We heard about this track being slippery, Joe, but this is just absurd. So there you go. Now that is the very opportunistic move there, coming up the inside from Fishman, being able to take it. Now we're focusing back here on Clenard and the boys in the back. That is the 45 of Clenard. We ride on board with them. Let's watch as this happens. They go into the braking zone. He clipped him, Joe. That's what happened. Clenard lost his wing.
It looks like it did pop back, but I think that must have hurt the suspension of Merrier, and that's why we saw him spin the way he did. Just seemed almost out of the blue. As up at the front of that group, it's still tight. It's Fishman ahead of Day and Verity. Clenard does have his wing back, as we said, so it looks like I think he'll be able to resume as normal.
And here they come again, going through the Parabolica. Now let's see if Raymond Day is able to replicate the success he had on that last lap, and Fishman's wise to it. You see him there moving off to the inside, breaking the draft and saying, nope, you're not coming by here.
Oh, but he goes very wide off the corner. The only penalty for that is the off track, but again, they don't have very many before they're given a drive-through penalty. So he can only do it so many times. This time, nobody trying to go side by side into the left-hander. And they're coming up on a little bit of traffic. That's Palacio, thankfully pulling out of the way of these 4 so they can continue on unabated. Oh, and did we miss a pass for the lead?
We did indeed, Joe. Christophe Herbino doing what Raymond Day could not, making the pass at the hairpin at the end of the Parabolica. We jump back to check a replay.
I think we'll need to back up a little bit more. Yeah, just a little more than this. Maybe about... Here we go. Yeah, down the Parabolica into the Spitzkura. This is a popular place to overtake. You get so much slipstream, and as we ride on board, you can see him setting them up. Defend? No, he's going to leave the door open. And
remember, these two are teammates, so there's definitely a little bit of gloves on racing there. They don't want to take each other off. But, Joe, as we come back live, it looks like Holland wants a little bit of revenge. He now darts to the inside through the Parabolica.
Gets to pay him right back. He's fully ahead, though. He doesn't have to outbrake him like we saw with Herbino. And I think that's going to work out much better. Now, that is Lampy behind them. The 95 is not on the same lap. So, he is just hanging out with his teammates, essentially playing rear gunner for the time being. as they brake hard into the Mercedes arena. Herbino slotted back into second. As I mentioned, he's had second twice, and Holland has won twice so far. And Tulio is the one that took the only other win of the season. Once again, very wide there for David Holland coming through the Mobile 1 curve.
Indeed, Holland taking a very aggressive line through there. And speaking of that, you saw when that pass was made by Holland for the lead, there was a lot of curb taken on the inside from Christoph Herbino, though. These guys are going to have to be careful. These Indy Pro 2000s, not a big fan of curve, and you can damage the suspension if you get too high on that.
They are pushing hard there through the north curve. We got a little bit of a fight down in 11th. Brett Barrett and Brett Thurman are together. And this is among our top spots actually in the AM class. Barrett's second in that AM group, and Dave Peterson, who you'll see flashes of in front of him in the 35, is leading the way of the AM class, all the way up to 10th when he started this thing in 26th.
It's a very, very impressive drive. A lot of damage mitigation there from all of these drivers to just keep their noses down and keep out of trouble. And if they keep this up, they will have a stellar result.
All this has been going on, and we haven't really mentioned is we got another battle down into the Spitzker. That's Fishman to the inside, managing to get by Day, and Day's now got another attacker, Verity, behind him, and the yellow and silver as they come through the kink side by side, sending Day very wide, and then now shallow on the entry to the left-hander as the track switches back, but he's not going to give up the spot. I was about to say, we have to mention that pit stops are still going to be happening at this track at today's event, as we've got, let's see, about just about half the race left to go now, so the window should be open.
Yeah, I would expect pit stops to be coming probably within the next 15 minutes or so. We normally tend to see a lot of drivers going for the overcut, not a lot of people coming in too early here. These cars tend to respond a little bit better with lighter fuel, so the more you can maximize time on a light fuel tank, the better.
Coming back up to the north curve, and Fishman trying to hold Raymond Day at bay, but Raymond got a great run there. Does he dare try and sneak it up the inside into the parabolic entry? No. He's going to choose to stay in line very wide behind him for the 04s. Verity seems to be a little bit mistake prone, but not to the extent that he has wrecked it or spun it. Just can't seem to hit those apexes today. And here goes Day again. Let's see what this pulls off.
And there you see the defensive move, but Day trying to maybe see if that outside line can work. No, thinking about an over-under here. Just can't get the car wound up exactly the way he wants it.
Still a defensive line from Fishman at first. Unusual. I didn't think he was really that slow off the corner, but he felt threatened. And they're going to stay all in line. Nobody poking their nose out coming into the Mercedes arena, following in line. And yeah, look at, you can see how slippery it is as the rear of the 455 was just waggling around.
Yeah, they are really having to work this wheel, especially down at lower gears. Now watch them as they come here through Sachs, working it out there. You can see just those micro adjustments he's having to make. Obviously the camber there through the corner is going to help the handling of the car. Now watch these two high speed corners to end. Ooh, that was a little bit of curve as well for Day. But again, just lots and lots of micro adjustments these drivers are having to make on the wheel.
It definitely looked like that's what he caught there. That almost sent him spinning. And we might want to jump back to Herbino because he's got another slipstream from Holland heading down the Parabolica. As he starts to reel him in, does he try to attack? Oh, a little bit of a defense, pulling off to the side, then Holland comes back to the racing line. He's going to leave it open for Herbino. Down to the inside, the 92 is through and into the lead, but that's a better launch for the 18. He doesn't take it, though. He just rides in line.
He's not, almost looked like he was bump drafting there. Ooh, thinks about trying to maybe make Herbino dive to the inside, but it's not going to happen there. They're going to stay in single file there through the Mercedes arena as they work their way back onto the straight before the Mobile 1 curve.
This has been a great fight for the lead. and continuing to pull away from all behind them. It's another 9 seconds back to Avando when we saw it was 6 before, and there was a mistake. Herbino giving up the lead to Holland in a big way. Great catch, though. My goodness.
And Joe, we've seen him make that mistake a couple of times. That was just a little bit too much on the entrance there. We can see the windup. This looks like we're back. There we go. There it is. So there's the catch. We can wind this back a little bit more. He just ran wide coming through the Mobile 1 curve, got into the gravel, and by some miracle caught the car.
Well, and great heads up by Holland. He actually went 2 wheels into the grass trying to avoid the accident himself. We could have seen both of our leaders wreck out in that moment, but both of them had their skills save them in the end. And the battle continues. Lampy just watching both of them, probably taking some notes here, figuring out how to be as quick as them. A little lockup in front of them. I think that was Vargas, one of our lap down drivers, just trying to continue to cycle through. We're down to actually 25 drivers left on the lead lap. So more than half of our drivers have already gone a lap down or have DNF'd.
Yeah, and I have to say here, watching this all play out, I have to be so frustrated if I'm Ethan Lampy. Oh, Joe, we've had a crash behind with, that looks like Fishman at the curve.
Oh, no. And this happened actually with Verity, unfortunately. Wondered when we'd get a case of a driver getting a little too ambitious into there. And unfortunately, looks like we won't be able to see a replay on it, but Verity did clip the wheel on the exit. You're going to see him come wheel to wheel with one another. Not sure that we'll be able to get this, unfortunately. So as we come back live, it is still 0.3 of a second between Holland and Herbino. I heard a couple drivers entering pit lane, but that may be to get damage repaired more so than taking some sort of scheduled stop. And it's going to start all over again. Christoph with the slipstream and his teammate in the 18 watching the mirrors.
Exactly, and as we've seen, let's now see if we get into the later stages of the race, if Holland decides to be a little bit more defensive. Doesn't look like it here. That's Herbino off to the inside. We've seen this move time and time again. There it is. Holland going for a little bit of an over-under, trying to get a slight bit of an overlap. He's able to stay close up behind Christoph, and now they're going to dive in through that right-hander and down into the curve. Not going to make the move there, so Holland content to let Christoph Herbino keep the lead through that arena section.
Now here's what's interesting is we've seen that move a few times where Holland clearly has a much better exit but chooses not to take it. I wonder if it gets down to the last couple laps and he finds himself in that position, if he does fight back and try and take it too wide.
Joe, you read my mind. That's exactly what I think is in the back of his head at this point. He knows where he will be able to have speed, and now is where, as a driver, you start to count backwards from the end of the race. You go, okay, if I'm not in the lead, then I know, if I'm not in the lead coming out of the hairpin, then I know I can make the fight back there, and this is how I need to do it.
Keeping him honest, and Holland, as much as he has not been able to just lead and stretch away from things, it does feel like it feels like he has control of this race, if anything.
Yeah, it really feels like that Holland is just kind of letting Herbino run here. He knows where he can make the move, and he's content to play a little bit of leapfrog with his teammate to maybe save some fuel, not have to be as aggressive, and using the draft on and off like that is clearly helping him, as they now have a 10-second gap over Rafael Ovando in third.
An update, don't need to go to it, but I think David Fishman with his incident got a drive-through penalty. I see him having gone through pit lane, unfortunately, without stopping. So there's one of our early victims from the strict limits that they enforce here in this series as they come back through to the stadium section yet again. Holland a mere 0.2 back from his teammate. Got a couple other drivers that have come in and out with official stops. Owen McLaughlin, one of them. Michael Broomhead, it looks like. Cranefoos, Scarali, Horvath.
Riding on board with Nick Horvath right here. You can see his pit stop. Only 6 seconds stationary in the box. Gets back past the green cones and is able to get onto the throttle. He's going to come back out in 18th place.
Well, let's head to the mid-pack. We got a nice battle for 11th. Colander and McLaughlin in there right now. And Nick, get this, 32nd on the grid and all the way up to P11 at this point. What a run it's been for him. Granted, he does still have to take a pit stop, so he might hand some of these back. But as far as the AM class goes, he is looking at a top 5, maybe even a podium today.
Yeah, he could certainly be on for it. As of right now, looking at our scoring charts, it looks like Barrett and Peterson and Olsen right above him, so definitely a top 5. More guys peeling off into the pits as it looks like Peterson and Barrett and Thurman all coming in.
Ooh, things getting a little bit sketchy there for a moment as a group was just weaving their way across that front stretch. Dave Peterson in P9 in the meantime returns to the track and is going to have Michael Broomhead right behind him. That is for position. Both of them have completed their stops.
It is, so the battle is now on between Peterson and Broomhead. This is going to be very exciting. Peterson, remember, one of those AM drivers, currently second place in that AM championship, but he will get first. But here comes Broomhead to the inside.
Plunging down into the Spitzker. Michael Broomhead ahead of Peterson, and he gets the grip off the corner, so that is going to give him 9th place. 10 laps to go now, and we are well past the halfway mark. I hear the alarm going off more and more, including some of our front runners, Ovando. I see Raymond Day pitting. We're watching Ovando now, looking for his pit stall. Let's make sure he hits his marks clean. It's good.
And he is taking tires here, Joe. That's an important thing to keep in mind. Not always necessary. You see their Day not taking tires. I have to say, with as slippery as this track is, I almost think taking tires is the right option.
Yeah, not something we see as often, but they are quick around here, so sometimes they can pay off. And wow, McLaughlin and Day, or excuse me, that was Gunderson behind him, excuse me. Car a lap down, so that is not for position. Looks like Colander, Richards, Thurman, they're all pitting from 11th, 12th, and 13th.
Yeah, Joe, and this is important to keep in mind. Raymond Day was a good chunk behind Ovando before those pit stops. He has just been on a charge. He's only about a second behind him now at this point, so Ovando really under threat here now from Raymond Day.
We take a glance at our leaders who are pitting right now. Good timing. Herbino and Holland both in at the same time. Clenard's going to be the next one behind them. Who did we have in third? It was Ovando who was in third, wasn't it? So that should be given back to him here soon, since Clenard and Verdi are both in. Herbino and Holland taking their service. And Herbino out much earlier. My goodness, it's looking like 2 seconds faster for Christoph Herbino, and that has given him a handy gap that I'm sure he's been wanting for a while in this race.
It is helpful, but Joe, he did not take fresh tires. Dave Holland did. That explains that delta between those pit stops. So we'll have to see if Herbino will be able to hold on here or if that fresh rubber for Holland will help. Okay,
pit stops are done now. So here is what the top drivers are in order. Now that the strategy has played itself out, Herbino leads. Holland is in second. Ovando is a distant third, but being trailed by Raymond Day, who's certainly given him a challenge. And then just a small jump back, it's Rod Clenard rounding out your top 5. We're watching from the perspective of the 77, and you can see how close he is to Raphael.
Yeah, Raymond Day has put in a very, very impressive drive here, up 6 positions from his starting spot, and now really starting to pressure the 48 of Ovando. He is within striking range about 0.6 of a second as they come through the arena.
Still, he's got to get a little bit closer than this if he wants to actually execute. He's got a few laps to do it, thankfully. And let's see, do they have much traffic? That's Orion in front of them. And then Adam Wright a little ways up the road. But otherwise, not a whole lot of cars, thankfully, that are likely to get into the way. We're going to re-enter the front stretch once again. Let's see if Orion decides to let them through here or if he'll pull off a little bit later. So far, he's just going to hold his line. Probably getting those blue flags right now, and they are not required to move over. They're informational only.
Looks like, oh! As he did not get out of the way. That was a big hold up there for Rafael Ovando, and now getting in the way of Raymond Day a little bit.
And Day's going to lose a little bit of time, but he'll get some back with the slipstream that he's pulling off of Oring. Oring's actually closing in on Ovando as well. So he'll stay in the midst of them, at least for the time being, unless he elects to go wide here. Yes, he does. Nicely done by Ethan. And now he's able to let them go and continue on their way. Also, let's give a quick nod to our AM leader as Dave Peterson is actually up to 9th now and has about a 4-second gap over second in that class. Brett Barrett, who is the next car behind him.
And he may not be done here yet, Joe. That is Michael Broomhead just ahead of him, less than a second ahead. So Dave Peterson may be looking at a little bit more than 9th place and that first in the AM category.
We watch from on board Dave Peterson. Or Broomhead, actually, I should say. Watching up to... Oh, excuse me. No, we are on Dave Peterson, rather. As they come into the Sachs curve. I'm keeping an eye. Oh, we got to change for position farther down the order. Christopher Richards looks like he's going to get one over on Horvath. So nicely done by the 49. But now he's going to have a challenge back on him. Oh, and he's going to have to play defense. Covers it off down into the Mercedes arena. Is this going to give a switch back to Horvath? Not quite.
But Horvath looked like he had a little bit of a better exit there. Let's see what he can do down this little mini straight. Not enough there. We talked about it is possible to make a pass into the Sachs curve, but it is very, very tricky. Ooh, gaining a little bit. Not going to make it here. He is going to be content to ride behind for the moment.
It'll have to be. It's tough to pass anywhere here up until you get to the Parabolica entry. Ooh, he's way off the apex there, too. That's certainly not going to help things. When a car off track in front of them, that's Kranefoos trying to stay out of the way. Thankfully, it looks like he is not going to interrupt them.
No, it's not. And now it looks like it is back down to Horvath to try to get everything in line here. This is getting spicy.
Oh, that was for position. Excuse me. I thought that was a lap down car. Kranefoos trying to get the spot back, and he's going to do it. Fishman as well. Horvath, instead of taking a spot, bleeds too.
Oh, my goodness gracious, Joe. Just look how fast things can change here. Yeah, as you said, that was a good heads-up play from Kranefoos and an even more heads-up play from Fishman. But here they come. Ooh, everybody fanning out.
Oh, this is not looking good. Locks them up. Nobody hits each other, and I don't know how, but they are going to get in each other's way. Kranefoos comes out the best of them. Brett Thurman up to 16th. Fishman winds up 17th, side by side between Richards and Nguyen. Oh, and Nguyen is going to get himself into P18 with a sneaky move.
Oh, and that looks like it's Kranefoos spinning out in front.
Oh, no. And he had just had an issue less than a lap ago. That car must not be handling well. Let's take a look at the replay to see if we can assess what happened.
Dives into that left-hander. Looks like just a little bit too much speed. Gets onto the throttle a little too early. Spins the tires around, and that's going to send him wide. Everybody behind him good to stay out of Kranefoos' way there.
Looks like he took a tow eventually. Maybe the car just not handling very well today after some contact or something that we did not see. Once again, glancing at the battle for 8th, as Broomhead is just ahead of Peterson. Dave trying to give himself a little bit of a buffer in this AM race by placing a pro driver between himself and his rival.
That's right, and there we see as he tries to get in behind. But let's jump over to that battle for P3, Joe, with Rafael Lavando and Raymond Day. We saw Day had that incident earlier. He's been able to re-close up that gap now under 9/10 of a second.
This is for the final step on the podium. Essentially a best of the rest kind of situation, unfortunately for them, as Herbino and Holland have been streaming away from them no matter how hard they've been fighting with one another. Into the Parabolica, Day about 9/10 back. This might be too far behind, unfortunately.
Yeah, we've seen about 7/10 of a second be the magical time difference. That's really where you can start to draw in.
Ooh, and something happened there with Thurman going off. And Fishman, I think Fishman may have gotten a DNF, a DQ from that, because he just suddenly disappeared.
Yeah, it looks like Fishman just misjudged the braking zone there, went into the back of Thurman. And Joe, you're right. We have talked about the incident limit this entire season, and there it coming out to bite Fishman.
Oof. Thurman, in the meantime, going to have to get a new rear wing on that car, and he's going to take some tires while he's at it. 2 seconds and some change after the pit stops between our leaders. Now it's down to 4/10 of a second. Holland has been consistently quicker than Herbino. This is bad news for the Benelux driver, and I'm not sure if he's got the ability to really hold David back when it comes down to it.
I'm not sure he does, Joe. Remember, Herbino took no tires and Holland did, and here Holland goes to the inside. Herbino really unable to fight back at all, just sticks wide. He's going to hope to carry more momentum through the corner, but Dave Holland is already on the way through. He is up and into the lead of this race.
Now, can he pull enough of a gap to keep Herbino out of his slipstream? That seemed to be really the annoying part for the 18, as he kept closing in on him and attacking down into that Spitzker. So Herbino is going to have 3 laps essentially to hold on to it and attack and try and get the lead back. Question is, does he have the pace with the old rubber on that machine?
Well, let's ride on board with him here and keep an eye on what his handling is like. Now, if there's a lot of slippery action from the car, we'll have a good idea. Relatively good there through the Sachs curve. Now, these are some relatively high-speed corners. We may see a little bit. Oh!
And another one. Twice in one corner, having to steer the opposite way. And that drops him back significantly. Great job keeping it from becoming something worse. But we've seen a lot of drivers in the past, unfortunately, have problems in that corner. Not quite in the same way, but certainly with near spins, much like we just experienced with Herbino.
Lightning quick reflexes there, Joe, from Herbino to keep that on board. Now, as they make their way through the start of the Parabolica and onto that, he is got the gap to about 0.6 seconds right now, so he may be able to fight back here. But if that car continues handling the way it is, It
was at 6/10 at the start, and it's down to about 5/10. So it was about 1/10 of a second that he gained coming down that stretch. And then, unfortunately for him, off the exit, he lost some more. Just wasn't able to accelerate off like Holland was able to. That must be those tires again, as it's up to 7/10 of a second now. This is not good news for Christoph Herbino. They're going to get 2 to go at the line as he continues to be trailed by a lapped car, Ethan Lampy, that we keep mentioning. But in case you're just tuning in, that's not for position, as we have been watching the battle for the lead for a good chunk of this race.
Yeah, and for Lampy, I've got to say, this has got to be so frustrating, him riding behind his teammates like this. He knows he had the speed. He was one of those drivers that was taken out in one of the early lap incidents, and just riding along like this, knowing you have the speed to be competing for the win, but being a lap down, Oh, it is one of the most frustrating feelings in the world.
Things have gotten close behind them for Broomhead and Peterson once again in that 8th spot, our leader in the AM championship, or the AM race today, rather. Making sure to try and hound the double aught as much as he can. You can see him heading into the Sachs curve, a little off the apex, but he squares it off nicely. Broomhead making sure to get himself a nice launch.
And you see there a little bit more of the aggressive turn-in angle from Dave Peterson coming into that penultimate corner, doing a good job of keeping everything together. Now, he will be within pretty much striking distance if he can keep the car closely wound up behind. He's only about 4 or 5 tenths of a second back of Broomhead in front.
But he definitely lost out. He was within about 3 tenths at one point. Maybe this slipstream will help him a little bit more as they now head on to the Parabolica. It's, well, this is a good comparison to what we saw with Holland and Herbino. Peterson is 6 tenths of a second behind as they come onto this long stretch. And now they come into the braking, but it doesn't improve. So, yeah, that seems to pretty much match up with what we experienced with our top two. That 6 tenths of a second is just that little bit too far back to really be very effective.
Yeah, and Joe, earlier in the race, we saw some of those gaps be able to come down, but that's because on fresher rubber, they were able to get the pressure down and push earlier. And now it just seems like they do not have that ability. Rear tire rubber is worn out, and they are just not able to get the jump off of the corner they need.
Back up to the top spots. Herbino is slipping away 9 tenths of a second now. Up to David Holland. And we're on the final lap. Holland looking for his 3rd win of the season and the championship lead after today. Tutulio, by the way, did get back out and is continuing on, but he's 3 laps down, currently running in 29th. So he's going to take a major hit. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if this was a drop week for him in the end. Out of the Spitzker. Now they accelerate their way into the Mercedes arena, braking hard. Continuing to keep Herbino just that roughly 8 to 9 tenths behind him.
And I do have to give credit here to Christoph Herbino. I thought for sure, with as rough as those tires were acting when we saw them, that he would be dropping like a stone. To keep this with roughly about a second really, really shows you the talent of the driver, that number 92.
Incredible that this is going to be his 3rd second place out of 4 rounds. But one better than that, it'll be David Holland, who, as he comes out of the south curve, accelerates towards the line and wins race number 4 of the season here in the Precision Racing League Indy Pro 2000 Series. His 3rd win here in Season 2. Christoph Herbino in 2nd, and Ovando with a bit of a quiet 3rd, but still a well-earned podium.
Yeah, he was able to hold off the assault there from Raymond Day, who finished about 1.8 seconds or so behind. And then Ron Clenard going to cross over the line to round out your top 5.
Well, that battle between Peterson and Broomhead unfortunately broke apart. And Peterson will have to settle for 9th place. But he will be our AM winner here today, starting from 26th on the grid. A tip of the hat for that number 35 machine. From there on down, not really much in the way of battles with all our drivers left on the lead lap. Only 17 of them are going to complete all 26 laps today.
Indeed, attrition playing a big part here today. Even more impressive for these drivers to make it all the way through to the end.
That's going to take us to a quick break, so we'll come back with the unofficial results as well as driver interviews, so stick around. Welcome back to Hockenheim. We just saw round 4 of the Precision Racing League Indy Pro 2000 series, and it was David Holland who took win number 3 out of 4 rounds, looking like he's going to be the man to beat. Christoph Herbeno is keeping him very honest, though. His third second place out of those 4 rounds means that even though he's been beat by Holland a few times now, he has got a very tight gap to him. Rafael Ovando rounds out your podium, starting from 11th. A lot of front runners fell down the order with a first lap wreck, unfortunately. Raymond Day was behind him in 4th, and Rod Clenard was P5. Stephen Verity finished in 6th, followed by McLaughlin in P7. Michael Broomhead was 8th, and then Dave Peterson started 26th, finished 9th, and was our highest finisher in the AM class today. Congratulations on the win, Dave. Brett Barrett rounds out your top 10.
Coming home in 11th was Tyler Scarali, followed by Donald Olson and Andy Spicer. Frank Nguyen came home in 14th, followed by Nicholas Colander and Nick Horvath. Christopher Richards in 17th was the last driver on the lead lap, with James Doherty, Barry Cochran, and Danny Duchesne rounding out your top 20.
Thurman finished in 21st, and then 2 laps down, it was Bear in 22nd, Vargas in 23rd, and Wright in 24th. Already, we're getting into cars 3 laps down. Many of these ran into some of those wrecks early on. Lampy, 25th, Marrier, 26th, and Wagner in 27th. DeTulio returned to the track to salvage what points he could in P28. It was Huard in 29th and Fournier in 30th.
In 30th was your AM points leader, Hugo Galaz. And then in 32nd was Ethan Oring. Caven Norris was 33rd, followed by Matthew Gunderson and Mark McDonald. Dave Menino was in 36th. And then Aaron Roofs, 5 laps down, in 37th, followed by David Fishman, Owen Watts, and Joey Haynes.
Yep. From there on down, it pretty much is DNFs today, unfortunately. So we'll talk to our winner, David Holland, which, David, you gave us some fascinating chemistry out there today. You were battling with your teammate once again. But from our perspective, it looked like you had this race under control most of the time. Did it feel like that within the cockpit?
Yeah, it did. Christoph was definitely fast. He was able to hang right there with me. I think we were pretty much on the same pace, but I wasn't going to fight him too much. I wanted to get behind him a little bit, kind of size him up some, see where I could pass him, see where I was faster. So, if it did come down to a last lap scenario, I knew where I could attack rather than just, fighting him for the lead and trying to stay out in the lead as hard as I could.
It's understandable. We heard so many drivers talk about that the track felt slippery today. Did it seem that way to you? And if so, what do you think was causing it?
Yeah, I don't know. It definitely did feel that way. It's kind of felt that way the whole week, to be honest with you, in many different conditions. So I don't know if it's just the track or the track and this car, that combo for whatever reason. But you definitely had to be smooth with the wheel and watch your throttle input and be smooth there too. It was a bit of a handful.
This has been an interesting first 4 rounds because you've now got 3 wins out of 4 races, but Herbeno's got 3 second places out of 4 races. So he's keeping those points extremely tight. Does that keep you looking over your shoulder?
Oh yeah, of course. And like I said last week, we're here to race. We're not here to do parade laps. So we're out there giving it our all. Today though, Christoph underfueled by a little bit, so there towards I had to tow him some and make sure he was able to get across the line, which I'm pretty sure he was sputtering across. So it was a good thing that we did that. But he's definitely keeping me on my toes, and I have a feeling we're going to be racing hard all the way to the last race of the series.
Another eye-opening development. We had assumed that the fact he didn't take tires is what slowed him down. Well, congratulations on another win, and hopefully we'll get to see you at Long Beach.
Yeah, looking forward to it. Thanks, guys. Got to thank the team, Delta Sport, real quick. Still had a good showing, even though they had an unfortunate lap 1 incident that took a lot of us out, but I think we still ended up with 3 in the top 5. The team sponsors: Move Up Transportation Solutions, Free M USA, Race Factory, Unified for Kids, Get Stuck, and Driven Texas. Also, shout out to my dad for spotting tonight. Thanks, guys.
That's David Holland, who took the victory here in the Hockenheim. Up next, another victor here today with Dave Peterson catching up with DJ Clark.
Well, Dave, that was a heck of a drive for you, coming home in ninth place and crucially taking home the top place in the AM standings. To say it was an eventful race is the understatement of the century, but how was it behind you? How was it behind the wheel?
It went pretty good for me. I didn't do very good in qualifying, but I usually don't. So the turn one was interesting. I just kind of let it come to me and got through it luckily, and then just sort of settled in. So I don't know. I like this track for some reason. I seemed to do okay at it. I needed to do something to make up for my dismal showing last season in pro. So.
Well, I wanted to ask you about liking the track, and it seemed like you just had a very smooth way around it. You didn't take tires during the pit stop. We saw our race leader, Dave Holland, do so. Was there ever a thought to take tires, or was it the plan all along to stay on the same set of boots?
No, that was my plan. I came in early and in the practice and just did a complete fuel run, and I looked at where my tires were at when I was done, and I felt like that, unless I had a spin or something like that, I didn't think I was going to need to take tires. So, now I just settled in and, came through the pit stop, and Michael Broomhead caught to me, and, he's a pro guy and I'm an AM guy. So he got by me, and then I just sort of stayed with him. I needed to stay with him to pull away from Brett Barrett because I think Brett was probably a little faster than me. But so I just kind of, I don't know. I think near the end I was probably faster than Michael, but Sean Duhamel, my teammate, I asked him if there was any amateur drivers in front of me, and he said no. So I just decided to just kind of hang out behind Michael and let him pull me along. So it worked out good.
I'd say so, in a good fight there with Broomhead. But we go from the sort of slippery or the slippery circuit of Hockenheim to the very bumpy and narrow circuit of Long Beach. How do you think that's going to fare out?
Well, that falls back to my dismal showing last season. I don't remember the position. I had worked my way up to 5th, 6th, or 7th with maybe 2 or 3 laps to go, 10 minutes or something. And we all looked at it in replay and not sure what happened. I just turned one. I went in and the car just went straight. I love street courses here in Belle Isle or my Long Beach, Belle Isle, and Montreal are probably my favorite tracks. It's tough to do anything, it's going to be interesting with 46, 48 cars, but I'm looking forward to it because I love street courses are my favorite thing of any of them.
Well, we'll be keeping a very watchful eye on you then with that kind of love for a street circuit. Dave, anybody you'd like to thank for tonight's AM victory?
My teammates mainly, Sean Duhamel and Don Olson and Vikings Hot Rod Racing. And Don Odom, he's not able to run this season, but he's still my teammate. And they took me on, I don't know, I guess a year and a half ago or something. And in 2019, I had a ruptured brain aneurysm and a stroke. So I was kind of down for a little while, and I sort of came back, and, they took me on and they've helped me and worked through it. And, my right leg, my right foot's basically still numb, but I turned the volume up in the engine, and I try to listen to that to help me with my throttle. So, but yeah, basically just my teammates. We have a lot of fun to racing together. So I'm fortunate to be on that team. We have a good time.
Well, there's nothing that makes racing easier than having some good people around you. Dave, congratulations, and we look forward to seeing you next week.
Right on. Thank y'all.
All right, that was Dave Peterson, your AM class winner, and now Joe Peak has caught up with Mark McDonald.
Yes, Mark, unfortunately having a bit of a disappointing day, winding up 35th in the end after qualifying 9th. Mark, you were caught up in that lap 1 incident at the very end of the lap in the stadium section. Tell us what happened from your perspective.
Joe, das ist nicht a good race, man. Not a good race at all. We have ended up not having a great time here in Germany, and I'm looking forward to getting back to the States. And I'm sure that with 45, 46 guys around the streets of Long Beach, we're going to be just fine, staying off the walls and everyone keeping clean. Man, that start was just super messy. Honestly, I don't know what the entirety of the Delta Sport team is doing, racing so hard against each other. I mean, Holland already had like a 1.5 second lead before that accident even happened. Like, how are you supposed to get that back? All of them are racing for second, which is great for Dave. You know, he's doing awesome, but you know, this entire group is just racing really, really aggressively. It's much more akin to the F3 days than than what we're used to seeing in this series. And when they're racing that close and everything, and DeTulio's got a glitchy connection, he gets a little bit of a glitch, appears right next to, I'm not sure who was next to him, but basically appeared in my replay right on his wheel. And then that's going to be an accident. I almost made it through it. I was trying to kind of thread the needle, and I should have just stabbed the brakes and gone hard right and tried to get through it. In which case, this would have been like a pretty nice third or fourth, I think. But unfortunately, it wasn't meant to be. And there was a lot of other sloppy driving kind of around here throughout the events. Just, I think, new track, and this track has like 20 lines for every corner. So there's a lot of people trying stuff that isn't quite working, which is unfortunate. But hopefully, it'll be better next time we visit.
We don't often get to talk about rivalries between teams in this series, even though the team's championship is quite important to a lot of the drivers. I'm starting to get the sense that Rust Racing and Delta Sport kind of have a rivalry starting to brew. Is that accurate?
You know, we've always had a rivalry with between Greg and Holland in particular in the past, and so we've raced closely against them for a long time. There's a couple of new folks that have come in for this particular season, which is great. Seeing the expanded grid and everyone's really fast and really excellent racing. I would say that the particular challenge we have is with so many guys representing Delta Sport, and with only a few of us Rust guys, there hasn't been a race this season when you haven't found our two teams having a collision at least. And this one had a little bit more than is acceptable, I'm afraid. So hopefully they can get together and kind of chat about their race strategy and keeping it clean so they can get to the end. Otherwise, one of these other teams, like I'm not sure, SRT or somebody else, is going to sneak through and take the team championship from people crashing into each other,
I can understand the frustrations, and from what I've seen in the forums, it looks like everybody should at least have a good head on their shoulders to talk it out. Commiserations, Mark. Is there anybody you want to give a shout out while we got you?
I do want to once again say that we're all thinking about Greg and his family at every single round. He did take some time and tossed a baseline setup our way to work on, and then I really want to thank everyone on the Rust Racing team. I mean, we've got in this race four drivers participating, but we've got 7 people on Discord all chatting, and even shout out again to my brother Dave, who's not racing in this, but super quick, and spent some time with me yesterday to help me figure out a few tenths here and there, which was super helpful. And I want to say special thanks to Mitchell Ian Green, who doesn't race in this series anymore, but provided setups that I used in the race. What was super fast, just not accident proof. So he's still working on that technology, and I'm excited for his developments in the future.
Well, send it my way when he comes out with that, as that was Mark McDonald, who wound up 35th. And that's going to close out our interviews with a big thank you to our sponsors, of course, before we take off, starting with Simulation Motorsports Affinity. If you want to check them out, head to SIMMSA.net. And of course, NinjaTrader. You can get started with a risk-free trading performance simulator and start tracking your performance at NinjaTrader.com. And finally, Butt Kicker. If you check out their website at thebuttkicker.com, you can feel what you've been missing. Thanks to the companies that provide the software and hardware for our broadcast listed here on your screen. Additional thanks go to June Lalonde, who provides our wonderful music. See the screen for how to get a hold of more of her great work. Thanks to the team today, DJ, Sean, and Dougie. If you'd like to find out more about GSRC, including upcoming races, you can find it at globalsimracingchannel.com. Also, check out our social media through the outlets listed at the bottom of the screen. And if you'd like to support the channel, check out our merchandise store at gsrc.storenv.com. Link is in the description below. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel as well, so you don't miss a moment here on GSRC. As was mentioned, Long Beach is up next. So if you thought this one was crazy, get ready. That'll be Thursday, April 29th at 9 p.m. Eastern. We have upcoming races for other series listed on the screen, so check those out and mark them down on your calendar. But until next time, race clean, race hard. We'll see you on the track.